On this episode of the Reynolds Team podcast, I'm sitting down with realtor Nicole Pulcini Mason to discuss choosing the right condo for you in Vero Beach and Hutchinson Island. Nicole, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So I want to start off by giving you a chance to introduce yourself and talk about your background in real estate and in the Vero Beach and Florida area.
Okay, so I'm a little bit new to Vero Beach. A few years ago, I relocated here because my ex-husband took a job, and so I was the director of public relations for a large nonprofit in North Florida. And so when we moved, I went into marketing consulting and met actually one of the agents on the team. I met Michelle, and she was a real estate agent and she's a home stager. And so I did some marketing with her, moonlighted in some home staging, and then through that we did several jobs for the Reynolds team, for Scott and Kathleen and some of their bigger listings. And really every single time that I met them or interacted with Scott, I was just so impressed. You know, he's so likable and they're so knowledgeable and professional. So when COVID hit, it gave me a chance to kind of like re-look at my life and goals. And I started thinking, I'm like, well, I really liked home staging. I liked helping people sell their home and move on. And I'm like, I could do more of that if I'm an agent. So I just cold called Scott and was like, hey, would you be open to like possibly entertaining me as being a real estate agent? And then that was it.
Wow, well that's really great to hear. I didn't realize that you had cold called him to...
I mean, I knew him, yes, yeah. But still I was just like, put him on the spot. I was like, wow. I know I'm putting you on the spot right now, but
wow, what
do you think of this?
Well, that's quite the story. So you've been with the team for, you said, about a year or so now?
Yep, it's been about a year.
Okay, awesome. And I think definitely, especially in the past year, a lot of the activity in Vero Beach and kind of this market area has definitely been with all the big condominiums, townhomes, really kind of the more popular spots for retirees and people looking to downsize. There's been a ton of activity with different condominiums, flipping, investors getting into the market in that sort of price area and the type of housing space. So when you're looking at a condo or when you're advising clients that are looking at condos, whether it's on the river, on the beach, on the mainland, what are kind of some of the things that you like to factor in when advising clients on what condominium to choose?
It can be really complicated, honestly. And like you said, because we've got beachside, riverfront, mainland. So really the first thing is location. Narrowing down, do they want riverfront? Do they need to be oceanfront? How about just being on the barrier island? Does the mainland work better for them? And then we've got other areas because you can look at Sebastian, Hutchinson Island, and then I've had several up in the Melbourne area even. So I think it really starts in that first conversation about location. And I've had people change over time too. Like maybe they start in Vero, but once they start, seeing the area, maybe they realize Sebastian is better suited for them. So that's really the first place. Then you can really look at their price range. And a big factor that people always bring up is the condo association fees. You get a lot with most condo association, fees, and so there's a lot of talk about that. But you still have a budget. The buyers have their monthly budget between maybe they have a mortgage or maybe their cash and how much they can put out. So price range alone can vary and narrow down what area is, you may not be able to purchase on the island. Maybe you do need to look mainland. Maybe Hutchinson Island, it's a little bit more affordable. That could be a better place. So that's kind of the start. Then it goes into what is your lifestyle? What's important to you? Are you at the beach all the time? Do you swim, play golf? What amenities are good for you? But at the same time, people will say, like, I love to golf. But do you need to golf at the condo, or how about if we're just like within driving distance?
Right. Yeah.
You know, they think sometimes people will tell me they're going to be at the beach all the time, and then after they start looking at some of the beach condos, they change. So it adapts and changes constantly, and that's fine, because you don't know necessarily until you start looking at them what is best suited for what you want in your price range.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think that, especially from what I've seen as far as the inventory and all of the typical areas to choose as far as condos, there's kind of a little bit of a flavor for everyone in terms of, if you don't like what your initial choice is, there's still several other different types of lifestyles and condos to choose from.
We do, and every area is different. And so that part of the lifestyle also, where are you going to spend your time? I had a couple who relocated from New York, bought a home on the mainland, and within less than 2 years, they realized they were spending so much time on the Barrier Island that they decided, we're going to sell the home, we're going to move to the Barrier Island, because they didn't know when they first got down here, where are they going to hang out? And so, that's one of those things that people have to really look at, and I try to help as much as possible by giving them tours. Where are you going to spend the most of your time? And if you are going to live on the mainland, are you comfortable driving over to beachside, on a regular basis? Right.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's a really good point that you make in terms of looking at not just location, but also price and size, and also the utility of it, if you're going to be living here in the area full time, or if you're going to try to be a snowbird and go back and forth between two or several places.
And I think that's probably, besides, the actual unit and looking at what you need in your unit, how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, stuff like that. That's the other thing. Is it a vacation home? Is it a year-round home? Is it a rental? Because those are going to change what you want and what's right for you drastically.
Absolutely. And I do kind of want to touch on the rental perspective of it, because there are a lot of different investment opportunities for different condos and townhomes in this market, where investors who are either very seasoned into it or coming into it for the first time can buy up a condo, try to spruce it up in their own way, and rent it out. So how does kind of that sort of client advising change or sort of alter, I guess, when you're advising an investor in terms of looking at different condominiums and property management?
It really starts first with the investor's goals. I've had people who only do annual rentals. I've had others who only want like vacation rentals, and then some who want to live here part-time and then do seasonal rentals. So like starting out with those goals and learning what's important, and are they willing to put work into it? Not all investors are. Sometimes they just want to buy the condo that's ready to rent out and be done with it. So that's kind of where it starts. And then after we narrow that down, it's looking at the unit's rentability. Can't just because you want this to be, a vacation rental property for weekly, will that actually happen? Most of the time, we're very rental friendly. Like, it's easy to rent in Vero Beach, Hutchinson Island, Melbourne, but there's a different rentability depending on your location. A unit maybe that's closer to 95 or somewhere down State Road 60, harder to rent, maybe like a vacation rental compared to anything beachside.
Right.
Makes sense. And then it's looking at their minimum rental like restrictions, and then rental restrictions in general. Because there are some condos that will only allow you to rent it out after your first year of ownership.
Oh, I actually did not know that.
I've seen 2 years too. Can't rent it out for the first 2 years of owning it.
Oh, interesting. So there's kind of these different sort of restrictions and requirements that you have to meet, and that's very important as far as looking at what specific area, what specific association you go with.
Yes, and reviewing, I make it very clear. I get all of the documents if possible. It's best to do it after you're under contract. You can look at the beginning parts of the restrictions, like through the MLS, minimum rental length, 30 days, it could be 2 weeks. It's usually over a month, up to 3 months, stuff like that. Some of them only allow annual rentals, so we can see that information. And you can see maybe like pet restrictions and such, but it's good when you have an investor, get them under contract so they lock that unit down. It's not going to be snatched out from under them, and then dive deep into the rental restrictions.
Right. Okay. That's a good point. So in terms of, especially with it being this kind of market, with homes going on and off the market so fast, that really it's kind of better to make that initial step to show that you are serious about that process, and then really getting to the nitty gritty and trying to figure out, once you've got the capital in play or under the under contract
right
process.
Because you can kick the tires during that time, get out for any reason during your inspection period, and that applies, of course, to that association's restrictions. So there's just so much that goes into it, and they are the ones that really need to look at those rules. And I have to tell, this is very important. I tell all of my investors, they will sometimes, maybe it says it only allows monthly rentals, but they are set that they're going to do bi-weekly rentals. I'm like, do not break the rules.
Right.
Don't go into this thinking that you're going to break the rules and get away with it. That is trouble. It is not a good move. So we have had those conversations.
Yeah, I can definitely see where that can be a point of conflict, in that as an investor, you see the potential to make it those shorter term periods. But as we both know in the business, property management takes those restrictions very seriously.
They do, and your neighbors do. It is, the neighbors are property management. That is the last thing that you want to do with your investment property. So it's a tough lesson.
Yeah, and I think there are definitely different condo communities that are more open to that kind of renter investor lifestyle, ones that kind of go for the more full-time or snowbird resident.
Yes.
And I think that definitely gets into kind of sort of the overall appeal of why people love to be a part of these huge condominium associations where there are these communities and there are all these different amenities, as opposed to a home. So for Vero Beach and Hutchinson Island specifically, what do you say are some of the benefits to sort of getting into that type of housing situation?
I mean, listening to my buyers, it's usually because the condo association handles so much. All of the exterior maintenance. Sometimes they even cover parts of your utilities, like sewer, water, trash. Some have cable. Every now and then you'll see internet. So they can kind of lock it and leave it. It also, like you said, it has the amenities. Not all of them have a ton of amenities, but there's usually a pool, maybe a private beach access. And then I have had, there's some larger, of course, than others, because we've got some small, associations, and that's a different type of buyer. But when we've got the larger ones, I find a lot of the wives, they're looking forward to having neighbors and to going to the socials, and a lot of them have book clubs and water aerobics and all these things to do. So that's really, I think, why people lean towards it, and it's very helpful when you are an absentee owner. If a storm's coming, you're not here, you don't have to do anything. It's, you've already locked it up. Condo association's going to handle the upkeep of the grounds. Palm tree falls, that's their job, it's not yours. Where you have a home, you didn't put up maybe your shutters before you left, you've got to find someone to put them up.
Right.
Something, maybe a palm tree falls down, you're the one that has to find someone to handle it. So it really is just being the absentee owner. And then, but if you are here full time, same thing. You don't have to do anything. Just lock it up and, head to your relative's house.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it definitely is appealing in that when you're kind of coming into, I guess, sort of looking from the retiree's perspective, you kind of just want to enjoy that time you have coming into this area to enjoy the beach, enjoy the river, enjoy all the things this area has to offer, to where there's that grand appeal of everything that is majority maintenance wise is taken care of by the association.
Right. Yes. And they usually are in great locations. I mean, you could be right on the barrier island and like walk to the beach. So there's a lot of benefits to condos. And then most of the time only having to pay your electric and maybe your internet. Because almost all of them have sewer, water, trash.
Well, that's really nice as well. And I think definitely a point that you made is that there are some very popular condominium spots, specifically right along the 32963 zip code and going down into Hutchinson Island. In terms of what you've seen as far as market activity in the past year, what are kind of some of the bigger associations and condominiums that really have a lot of activity that really seem to draw a lot of clients that you've had?
The one that comes to mind immediately is Ocean Village. So that's on South Hutchinson Island. So you go over, the Fort Pierce Bridge, and it's a little south. It's a resort-style community. It has a guarded gate, I think 9 holes of golf, tiki bar, restaurant, tennis courts, and then multiple pools, private beach access. So those just go. And they've got they've got a few, I think, single family homes, but most of them are like villas and then townhomes and then condos. And there are 3 like high rise-ish, they're not high rises like Miami, but taller buildings. Those they're usually like, there's 1 bedrooms, 2, and I think 3. I don't know if there's any 4 bedrooms, could be wrong. But there's such a variety, and those are great for, I've got investors who have purchased in there to do rentals, like short-term rentals. We've got investors who have bought annual rentals in there, and then I've got people who have also purchased like their own vacation homes that they use, and they also allow their family to use. So those are always coveted, really. They're so nice, and it's fun to show. It's great to show that whole community. And it's really close to what's happening on South Hutchinson Island. And then you can pop over to downtown Fort Pierce, which has like Sailfish Brewery, and there's like a new axe throwing place and all these restaurants and local music. And then you're still close enough to Vero Beach and Port St. Lucie.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the biggest appeals of all the different condos along Hutchinson Island is you kind of get that dual living capacity of you can enjoy the Vero Beach style living along with the Fort Pierce style living as well. Right,
and sometimes, I mean, the market has changed, but your money goes a little bit further there. The condo association fees are a little bit higher, but look at all the amenities you get. And they are one of the only communities that is pretty open to short-term rentals. And they even have, like a local property manager that will handle them for you. So there's a lot going on in Ocean Village. And when I first started, I can't remember, there would be, I think like 10, 12, 15 listings. Not after COVID hit. They have been completely snatched up. They barely stay on the market.
Wow.
Yes. I mean, there's so much to do, and there's so much outside to do, and Florida's open. So people have their eye now on tiny little South Hutchinson Island.
Yeah, that is a great point. I think another one of the biggest things that I've seen just going to inspections or showing different condos is that there are always different things, whether it's small or big, they're always changing about the condominiums, whether that's big renovations, added on amenities. So it's to a point where there could always be different things that are changing to kind of spruce it up and not just get the impression that these are several decades old buildings with several units in them, but rather they're ever-growing, ever-evolving communities and developments.
That's one of the things that will really set some of the condos apart from others is how they've kept them up. How the grounds are kept up, how active everyone is, how the buildings look from the outside, how are the lobbies. So that's a good point.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest points that I would love to end on is there is so many different condos to choose from. You can drive all through Vero Beach, Hutchinson Island, Fort Pierce, and really kind of be like, what condo would be right for me? What kind of community style would I be into? So from your perspective, being on the Reynolds team, what would you say are some of the advantages to having an experienced realtor on the team who can sort of walk you through what the right condo is for you?
I mean, having a local agent is always going to be helpful. They're going to know the different associations, all the different areas of town, and be able to guide you through that process to help you narrow down where you really should be and what's going to best align with your lifestyle and price range. Because there are some outside agents that people will try to use in our area, or anywhere, outside agent coming into your area, and they can take buyers into a showing. They can schedule a showing. They can give them their MLS sheets, but can they tell them where they can get the best margarita?
Yeah.
Can they tell them exactly where the nearest beach access is? Where the
nearest axe throwing spot is?
See, that is the closest one. Surprisingly, is in Fort Pierce. We don't have one yet in Vero, but that's like the difference. And just, each association is so different. And so when you, as an agent, you've worked with those associations before, or our transaction coordinators in particular are like the unsung heroes of dealing with the associations, because you have to get all those documents from them and the budgets and the application and make sure everything is accepted in order for your contract to close on time. So when you have local people, they can do those things. They have local inspectors, lenders, and contractors, if you need to renovate. So when you have an agent that isn't very familiar, or if you're trying to do it yourself as, if you're a buyer hitting up for sale by owners, these are going to be the difficulties that you run into.
That is a really good point, and that's a very big lesson that I'm sure everyone learns in this business. Is there's so many different phone calls and connections you have to make with property management, closing coordinators, and really just kind of getting all the documents in line, not just for the transactional process, but also just to make sure that everything's all lined up to where there are no bumps along the road in closing on your new condo and getting into it so you can enjoy the actual fun of it.
Right. If you don't have those pieces in place, you're not going to close on time. And so, the greatest thing about the Reynolds team is we have such a robust team of experienced agents who all know the area. And because we have so many people and we have the whole admin team behind us, if maybe I don't know Bryn Mawr very well, I can turn to my associate who's been doing it longer and ask. So you end up with a team here instead of just one agent, leading you through fumbling around.
Absolutely. And I think that's a very great point to end on. So thank you very much for coming on the show, Nicole.
Thank you.
And stay tuned for more episodes of the Reynolds Team podcast.